Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in tonight. My name is Dennis Scholl, and I am the CEO of Oolite Arts, a Miami-based organization that supports visual artists and filmmakers. I want to welcome you to Pass the Mic, We Will Tell Our Stories. Tonight's program came about in a partnership with Miami's Community Justice Project, where we collaborated to commission some of Miami's best filmmakers and pair them with neighborhood leaders in an effort to highlight social issues in Miami-Dade County directly affecting those leaders and their communities. To hear more about tonight's films, I want to introduce and hand it over to one of our community's leading journalists and now the Director of Community Research and Storytelling at the Community Justice Project, Nadege Green. Nadege, we at Oolite are honored to partner with you and CJP, so please take it away.
Thank you, Dennis. And truly, CJP is incredibly thankful for this opportunity to collaborate with you guys to create this platform for community storytelling. As Dennis said, I'm Nadege Green, Director of Community Research and Storytelling at Community Justice Project. At CJP, we are movement lawyers, researchers, and artists supporting grassroots organizing in South Florida and across the state for racial justice and human rights. And tonight we are going to be watching 3 short films that touch on issues and injustices in Miami amid COVID-19 and the folks who are fighting and showing up to address some of these issues. The first film in the lineup tonight is Final Notice by filmmaker Vanessa Charlot, who teamed up with community expert Michelle Bentley, whose landlord tried to evict her during the pandemic. The film shows Michelle's fight against her landlord and how she finds her voice to advocate and educate other tenants facing eviction in Miami. Beyond the Bars is the film that we'll show after that by Miami filmmaker Fxrbes, who documents the injustices at Miami's Metro West Detention Center during the pandemic through the eyes of Elizabeth Torres, whose fiance is being held there. And the last film tonight is Village Friege, a play on the word free and Friege, and is by filmmaker Alicia Edwards, who documents how COVID-19 exacerbated food insecurity in Miami's Liberty City neighborhood through the work of 2 friends, Danny Agnew and Sharina Jones, who created the Village Friege, the refrigerator and pantry filled with sustenance for people in the neighborhood who need it. And with that, we will now kick it off for you to watch the films. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight.
The day came where he was like, you have 2 options. You either pay me by the 15th or I'm putting a notice on your door. And right then and there, I kid you not, the roof collapses in 2 different spots. And that same day, later on that night, I get the notice on the door. And I'm bawling my eyes out. I couldn't believe my house is falling apart. I'm facing a pandemic and I'm constantly being retaliated against by my landlord. Before these experiences, I thought I was someone who knew what they were doing, that they were working towards something. Something that a lot of people don't think about is that it's very easy to get like an eviction. It's very easy, to just have it there. But most people don't realize it ruins a lot of lives, And then people like me or people that live in fear don't know that they have rights. So they constantly uproot themselves everywhere. But I mean, that's been going on for years. This time we decided to fight back. When COVID hit, it exacerbated the situation. I lost my job. Marco couldn't start his job. Any chance that we had of restarting our life became very, very difficult.
My priorities have changed. I feel like certain dreams were just not attainable at the moment and had to be set aside. Certain things that are more in focus at the moment as, trying to survive. Trying to provide for Michelle.
We found out we were going to go through an eviction process in a strange kind of way. We tried to negotiate with the landlord. We tried to see if there was any possible way to pay things down. I went from being able to pay $1,100, $1,200, to literally just about $400, $500. And with cut hours, Marco not being able to start his job, it was very difficult. The landlord couldn't wait anymore. It didn't matter what I tried to say to him, try to help him. You know, I hadn't received my stimulus check until like literally September, August. We didn't qualify for unemployment. We applied for a bunch of stuff and we didn't receive or qualify for anything. So for a long time, we had no assistance financially. Come around May, beginning of May, mid-May, he starts threatening us, sending me really threatening text messages, telling us that we needed to get the hell off of his property, that we were nobodies, that we deserved to be kicked out on the street, essentially, despite the fact that there was a pandemic going on. I went online and I put my situation out there. I'm like, look, you know, my roof is collapsing, my landlord's retaliating against me, I'm getting sick, the AC unit doesn't work, there's so much mold in it. I need help.
When all these things were happening, I would say that I was affected every time I would come home. Seeing her cry, seeing her in you know, pain sometimes, and just overwhelmed, the depression. You know, it just affected me so much. It made me want to do more and more every day.
It's not normal to have mold in your house. It's not normal that your roof is collapsing, despite the fact that we have hurricanes that come in and out all the time. But those are things that need to be maintained on a yearly basis, monthly basis. It's not normal to have holes in your house where you have bugs coming in and you have roaches in your bed. I asked for help from my fiance's father. You know, he seemed to know a little bit about what was going on. And someone referred to me to look up some tenants unions, and I didn't know what that was, you know. I decided to learn as much as I could about what it means to, you know, defend yourself and having a right. Now I help organize tenants unions with the Miami Tenants Union. Their biggest belief, and I share this with them, is that housing is a right. Always has been, always should have been, always could be. I spend time talking to people that are going through the worst times in their life, you know. I have phone calls where someone's like, I'm in and out of the hospital, the conditions in my house are so deplorable, I need help. And we strategize on what we can do. During this pandemic, it's really showed how ugly it can get and how many people have died over the fact that people couldn't decide to always choose people over profit more than anything.
No, no, no traiga ese gato.
Yes, we're forgetting someone. This is Papa Shark, the angel. And this is Chanel. And he's gonna hold it. Look, he's gonna
Ya,
hold it. He's gonna
bájalo.
hold it.
So my kids feel that it's unfair, the reason why he's going through these things, and he tells us every single day. So they don't understand how crazy it is that he doesn't have the right food or the right nutrition, or that he can sleep right like us, or that he can do things just like us, or why he's locked up for so long or so many hours, or he can't go outside. Why can't we see him more often or talk to him more often? And my kids ask me every day for him, like when he doesn't call throughout the day, and they say, oh, has he called? Oh, has Angel called? Oh, has Angel called? And I tell them, no, he doesn't call. He hasn't called. So when he is able to call, he calls really late when they can't even speak to him anymore. It's very difficult.
And I think a margin that they're not talking about, they blame the COVID, like that's happening within the inmates, like it's an inmate to inmate issue. But the reality is these inmates can't, the ones that are in there, especially some of our loved ones that have the higher charges are in a specialized area, they haven't left Metro West. You know, they haven't been in contact with the outside world. However, corrections leaves Metro West on a daily basis. Go home, go to Christmas dinners, get in contact with individuals with COVID, come back into the cells, having COVID, not reporting it, infecting our loved ones, and no one's talking about that. Like, no, this is just an inmate issue. That's all you hear. But in reality, a lot of our loved ones contracted COVID from corrections.
When COVID started, you know, these jails had, or these cells had, usually between 50 and 70 people per cell. And so if you just imagine, I would say the cell is maybe double the size of this room that we're sitting in. And inside of that, there were 70 people. And so, you know, there's absolutely no ability to social distance. The way that the jail is set up is that there's kind of like, there's all these bunks on the outside, and then in the middle is like a little seating area where people, there's a couple TVs, people gather there and watch TV. Sometimes people might eat at those little tables over there. But yeah, like during the, like, you know, out here you know, like I'm at home most of the time, I stay away from people. Inside of the jail system, you're literally crammed in these cells with dozens of other people. People are constantly coming in and out of the jail. Corrections officers are constantly coming in and out of the jail. And so as a result, you know, people inside are always at risk of catching it. And so, you know, there's the fact that, you know, people don't have hand sanitizer, people have, you know, there's no like laundry detergent. So people are basically getting these like little bars of state soap and crushing them up in order to wash their clothes. Laundry machines and dryers are constantly not working. And so people are wearing wet clothes, which makes them sick. And even just in normal times, you know, there were people, like I've talked to people even before the virus started, where they would be getting MERS because they were so in such close quarters with other people. It was just constant outbreaks of different kinds of diseases that happen inside of the jail system. And so, you know, that's kind of, I think at Metro West, in addition to that, people's food is horrible. People end up with like high blood pressure, diabetes, all of these different types of diseases that they didn't have before they went into the jail system.
So here on this email, when I emailed Miami-Dade County, the mayor, they referred us to the Human Resources Department, which I don't know why they would do that, but they wrote us back saying that the request for the emergency release of the inmates we wrote to the Miami-Dade Commission on Human Rights wrote back to us on the complaint. And they said that they didn't have the ability to further process the complaint. So they put us to go ahead and handle it with the state attorney's office, that they were the ones in charge that could handle it, or corrections department. And they said that accordingly, they had closed the complaint due to lack of jurisdiction. So these people are the Commission on Human Rights in general, human rights for the county, human rights for the employees that work for the county, and the Human Resources Department. And they say that they lack the ability to help humans, basically. So they brush me off and they send me off to the state attorney's office, which is against us, against all the inmates, because they're the ones that lock the people up. So what help is that if they send us to the state attorney? And if they send us to talk to corrections department, to Daniel Jr., that obviously we know he's not doing anything. So where does this go? Where does this leave us? Leaves us in nothing. In the end, in zero. You know, back to square one. The COVID numbers keep rising. Correctional officers are still sick. They come in and out. They're putting sick people into the dorms where the good people are at, you know, they're negative. And there's still no social distancing. They're not following guidelines. They still don't have anything to sanitation. They sanitize like once a day. But the inmates themselves, they can't distance, and they don't have anything for themselves to be able to sanitize themselves, like, you know, sanitizer or Clorox or anything to be able to maintain their areas clean. So it's still a big issue right now. And they're still blending in people, sick people with good people. And the correction officers, they got to do a job. So they're practically obligated to go to work even if they test positive. And right now, Metro West Detention Center is covering up that and lying to the news lying to the judges, lying to everyone that everything is fine and they're following the CDC guidelines, which they're not. You know, and I mean, somebody needs to be held accountable for that. I believe the warden and the director for Metro Dade, you know, and he doesn't want to give his face. He's hiding in his office and he tells his assistants to pick up the phone calls and the emails, but he still has not given us the face or to face anyone regarding all the issues that have arisen at the facility. I still haven't seen him speak once on the media, on TV. Not yet. I'm still waiting for that. And it hasn't happened. And, you know, we've been dealing with this for months now. Mm-hmm. We want him home, right?
Yes.
Good. Señora Nadege.
And Angel, this is what I made you. See? I love you so much.
I think if people have loved ones who are currently incarcerated, or people who have loved ones who have been incarcerated in the jail system in Miami, it would be amazing if people reached out, because one of the things that we've seen is that when people try to do things by themselves, they just get ignored. When people try to file grievances inside of the jails about the conditions, they face retaliation. And I think that the only way that people can actually do something about the way that this system works is by coming together and trying to address it as a collective. I just think it's too, so I guess my answer to that would be that people should reach out to us and see how they can get involved if they've had a loved one who's been incarcerated in the Miami jail system.
The bread in it, we give them a pack of tuna. We give them a can of Vienna sausages. I got it for you, an apple, an orange, and a banana. James Evans?
Yeah.
What would you like, microwave meals?
No, I just want some. You got any milk or cereal?
I don't have to check, but which one, non-perishable?
No, I'm good.
So you want something to cook? Food should not be something that people are going without. A mother should not have to choose between gas and feeding her children. She shouldn't have to choose between bus fare and feeding herself. It's just sad to know that with some people, like you say, this is all that they have is here. We have to start coming together, forming resources, and taking care of each other. You know, some people feel like that they have to have so much to create a meal. You can have 3 items and you can eat like you went to a 5-star restaurant. So since I started this, that's what I'm transitioning to. How to prepare meals They're coming here to get things, but we want to teach them how to fish, give them resources to get them back into better situations. The homeless people, to try to transition them back into the normal flow of life. So that's what I want the refrigerators to be. Always ask them, what do you need today? Because everybody's situation is different.
I knew it was needed. I didn't know what it would look like. I knew it was important. I set a day on it. I was hesitant, but I thought about it and it fits what we already do. So the Roots Collective is the umbrella to all of our different movements, businesses. So the Roots Collective is our nonprofit ring. And underneath the Roots Collective, we have Roots Printing, which is a black and brown full service print company. We have Roots Clothing, and we also have a food pantry that's connected to the community fridge. We gave that building completely to Sharina now. The Roots Collective provides the space as well as a network of people that can donate.
We have 3 different meals today. We have vegan lasagna, chicken fried rice, and regular lasagna. Vegan lasagna? Yes.
We specifically deal with hunger and poverty in Liberty City, specifically at this location.
The other fridges that I've seen are just fridges. I don't see people that are connecting with people, and I think that's a huge part of this, is that human connection that people are lacking too. And it's all volunteer-based, getting connected with the community, getting to know what people need, asking people what they need, getting what they need. She does the work herself. She has numbers to show how many people she feeds, how many meals she's giving out daily.
She's here every morning at about 8 o'clock. She stays till 12. She goes to her job. She works there for 3 to 4 hours, comes back, restocks the fridge, feeds more people, and then she leaves, gets a little bit of rest, comes back at night, and does it all over again. It's getting to a point where there's not enough money coming in for the fridge, and because she's here so much, her personal bills are lacking now. And so we gotta try to find a balance.
And I just want to see how I can help her however I can, because she's a really great person and she's doing a lot for the community.
She's gotten down sometimes because, you know, having to feed people is sad in itself because we know there's a lack of, but she's dedicated. She continuously tries to find ways to keep this thing going.
Yo soy cubana. I'm Cuban. Se have moved here in Miami 40 years. But in this building, 1 year. But it's very dangerous because since I moved here, I see a lot of people get killed, you know? And that corner, in the same week, they kill 2 persons. Go inside. Go inside, you want to see where the bullet ends. Right here, and the end is right here. See? That's my neighborhood. Oh yeah, that's my family. I'm a good person. I've been working since I was 12 in Cuba. And when I came to America, I did all kind of, I work in the chip factory, in the chip factory, and then I go to the factory where you have to iron clothes. You see my hand? And I do nails. I do beautiful nails, but right now, because I'm working. I have a dog, and I do pedicure, I do hair, I do wax. I take the mustache, the beard out of the ladies. I do the kind of job, I like it. I had 2 kids and I've been working all my life. And I don't know where I'm going to get some food. Somebody told me, oh, you want to get some with night treatment? I said, yes, of course. They told me, take the $7, go all the way to 54. And you're going to see the refrigerator outside, go over there. Man, thanks God they tell me. And when I go over there, she say, what you need? Nobody never asked me. All the time they give me the packet, whatever's there, that's good enough. But she say, what you need? I say, I need everything. I need rice, meat, bread, milk. And the lady just give it to me.
I'm happy she have that spirit, even though she has, you know, she doesn't have everything that she needs. I'm happy that she still has that spirit to pick herself up.
We don't want to have to continue having a community fridge. We're filling a void. COVID has happened, poverty has been here. The state needs to step up. The state needs to be the ones to figure out solutions to help our people. We just are giving them examples of how to.
Today, I go and make me some tostones. Thank you to the play and the people that support. And what I'm going to do with this now is just fry. I put it high. I go over there and she give me some good stuff, then to her, then to God first. Me and my neighbors eat.
My vision is already larger than this space. I eventually want a building. When all the resources come together, I'll have it. That's my wildest dream, is to just make us better as a whole. If we open our arms, we'll get so much further.
heard some things to make me think I shouldn't care for you. But talk is cheap, especially when we only care for half the truth. And I don't know what you've been through. Don't know what you've been through. on the screen. But eyes can lie when the movie in your mind isn't us first and routine. I don't know what you've been through. Don't know what you've been through. Scared to see myself in you. I don't know what you've been through. It'll never be my place to judge you. Forgive me for the times I do.
Hi, everyone. For folks who may have joined us late, I'm Nadege Green, the Director of Community Research and Storytelling at Community Justice Project. CJP collaborated with Oolite Arts to put on that very powerful screening that you all just watched. Again, thank you so much to Oolite for making the space to partner to create a platform for community storytelling that really centers around equity and justice and the voices of the folks who are directly impacted. The last film you just saw was Village Friege by Alicia Edwards, who worked in collaboration with community experts and dope humans, Danny Agnew and Sharina Jones, who created that Village Friege you just saw. The film before that was Beyond the Bars by Miami filmmaker Fxrbes, who collaborated with Elizabeth Torres, whose fiance is being held at the Metro West Detention Center. And the very first film was Final Notice by filmmaker Vanessa Charlot, who collaborated with Michelle Bentley, whose landlord tried to evict her during the pandemic and who is now a tenant organizer. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. It is a complete honor to be virtually sitting with three powerhouses and dope storytellers in our community. Just wanted to jump in and just start off, like, we don't have a super long time to chat, but I would love for this to just be a conversation, let's just talk our stuff. But the very first thing I wanted to start with, when we created this storytelling platform, Oolite and CJP, we were very intentional that this had to be a collaboration with community folks, that we didn't want, the typical idea of you go in and you find a subject and you put on something on people, that this was indeed a collaboration between filmmakers and the storytellers, the community experts, as we call them, because folks who live this and the folks closest to it are the experts, right? So I just wanted for you all to talk a little bit about how and what it felt like to collaborate to center these narratives in a community storytelling way. I will throw it to Fxrbes, since you're big on my screen. And then we can go from there.
Okay, so I come from a music video background, and in that world is very plastic, it's very, it's fake. So to be able to tell an actual story of something that is true and real is something that I've been wanting to do for a while now. So honestly, it feels amazing to be able to tell a true story and an authentic story from Liz's eyes about her fiance. So to answer your question, it feels amazing.
Vanessa's nodding, so that means you have to talk next. What was that? Talk a little bit about, collaborating as a filmmaker versus, finding a subject and what that is for you. Rather you have a collaborator here with someone that you are centering to help tell their story, but it's not you telling the story, right?
Right. So in addition to making film, I'm actually a documentary photographer. And I've spent an extensive amount of time documenting communities in Miami, but also documenting communities in Haiti and different places like that, where I am very intentional about humanizing their experiences and not making it seem like it's something that cannot happen to all of us. So collaborating with Michelle was, I approached her as how I would want myself to be approached if I was in that situation. I approached her as a friend, as a sister. I was very, very mindful about making sure that she told her story, and I was just there to bear witness and to share it and to shape it in a way that really speaks to the heart of the matter and what's really happening in our communities, which is in Michelle's case, and not just specifically Michelle, but so many people in South Florida are dealing with housing injustice. And just, sometimes we see the numbers, but we don't see the faces. We don't really know who's going through it. And so when you see Michelle is a brilliant artist. She's, she's a dog and cat mom. She's a fiance. She's a friend. She's a daughter. She's a sister. And I wanted to explore all those things about her and make it clear that Michelle is experiencing something, but that situation does not completely define her as a person.
What about you, Alicia?
The two things that ring the most true, especially looking at the community through Danny and Sharina's eyes, is this idea of dignity. So many of the people who take advantage of the Friege are also people who volunteer there. And something that I think was so important was to make sure that I wasn't looking at this as a voyeur, that I was giving people equal dignity as we went around. And I really also made a conscious effort to find beauty in mundanity. So if you think of something as simple as the curtains in Cecilia's house, blowing in the wind, there was romance and there was beauty in that. And I know, of course, that the focus is food insecurity, but when you keep that idea of beauty, and I think that beauty rings throughout it, I think it's easy to find the dignity in each person. It's so easy to look at this as an outsider, but from the inside, this ethnographic approach definitely, I hope, will influence policy, to be quite honest. I think it really, I'll echo what Vanessa says, puts a face to the numbers. Yes, South Florida is the most food insecure region in the nation, but what does that look like inside somebody's house? What choices are they making as they literally cook? What choices is Sharina making as she goes to the grocery store every morning? And what choices is Danny making, in terms of security and what's available and how to keep everybody involved safe? It was a brilliant experience. I have so many people to thank. So thank you, Nadege, for that question.
Absolutely. And another thing that strikes me, coming from the space that we occupy, Community Justice Project, is, you talk about informing policy, that anything we do is certainly about building power, building strength in collectives to shift unjust systems, right? We don't tell stories for pretty's sake. We don't tell stories just to tell stories. We tell them for a purpose. And one of the things I wanted to underscore in the work that all three of you did was the idea of resistance, that this wasn't just something happening to people, that this was people fighting back against the thing that's happening. And that is so important, right? The idea of resistance, especially when you look at our communities, our resistance, the stories of our resistance are always erased, right? We didn't just take it. So I would love for you all to just talk a bit about what resistance looked like in the films that you produced.
Well, for me, the fact that Michelle became a tenant organizer and reclaimed her power in such a volatile situation is a perfect example of resistance. And she really, through her action, poses the question, what does it mean when the ideas around who's deserving, right? Who deserves housing? And why isn't that just something that everyone should have access to? Why does it have to be this struggle in order to meet a basic need? The other thing is that, in the midst of Michelle going through all that she was going through, she was also talking to other people that was going through that. So like Michelle was also playing an intricate part in empowering other families. And I think the fact that she was bold enough, she was audacious enough to fight back and become very, very involved in tenant organizing, it changes the entire story. And Michelle quickly goes from victim to victor. And I just think that's amazing.
What about you, Fxrbes?
In regards to resisting, what I've seen from beyond the bars from the ladies were basically them pushing back on the idea that quote unquote inmates are not human beings. Like people in these spaces deserve certain rights, especially good foods, especially not being in a cell 70 deep. Like that doesn't even make sense during the time of COVID. Like these people are human beings. So pushing back against the idea of that these people aren't allowed to have like dignity, basically. Like they shouldn't have dignity because they quote unquote did something wrong, even though most of them haven't even been convicted yet. And also what I liked to see were that they were all women, but they were fighting for their men. And something during this time where I feel like there's a lot of separation between genders and whatnot, to see that like women fighting for their men, that was a beautiful sight. So I can say that. That's what
I just want to name that women are always fighting for like we've been doing this.
No, I agree. But to see it in this moment where everything feels like everybody's it's the tug of war is beautiful.
And Alicia, can you talk a bit about resistance and what you saw in the work?
Right. I am a dreamer by default. And I think that Sharina's dream, like her last few sentences, like my dream is just for us to be better. I think that that's resistance. I think that that's like a deep soul fight, right? To be standing on the corner of 7th Avenue and 54th Street and say, I dream for all of us to be better. I think that that's a fight in itself. And then on a more pragmatic level, Danny is very clear when he says, I don't want to keep filling the fridge. I don't want to keep spending my money. This is the state's job. And, my act of resistance is to show them how it can be done. And I think that, coming from Danny's background as a community activist, as someone who fights every day for the economic rights of Black and Brown people, I think that his chastising the state in order to keep people fed is a really strong and obvious mode of resistance.
I just want to remind folks who are watching that we are taking questions, like drop them when it comes to you. If you have any questions in the chat, and we will definitely try to get to them and weave them in as we have this conversation. Another thing I wanted to explore is, what, if anything, shifted for you? Like how did tackling this work inform you? Like, did you learn anything new, or how did that inform you and the work that you've done?
Nadege, if I can speak again, I think that I learned the most from Cecilia Hernandez. Just the idea, and I've reiterated it in other interviews, but that these are working people, right? We have this idea of who's disenfranchised, but this is a woman who has worked every day of her life. And it really was a surprise to learn what a daily struggle it is for working people. Working people are food insecure. We have this idea that these are lazy people, maybe not mine, but the popular narrative is that these are people who don't care, they've given up. And I think that Vanessa and Fxrbes' stories as well show that these are people who have pride, who work every day, but still the situation around them is untenable.
Yeah. That's spot on, Alicia. The other thing that, I learned, or what shifted in me, was seeing the position of her fiance, Marco. Marco is a very silent or quiet force. And I think oftentimes when you see activists, you see people in the community that's engaging, you're not really aware of the people behind them that are propping them up, that are making sure that they have the mental fortitude, the strength to continue. And so Marco, his unwavering support in making sure that Michelle has everything she needs in order to continue to do this work. His dream is to actually be a musician. And Marco works long days at the Oolite River as a kayak instructor. And it's hard work. And I remember, doing one of the taping and in the midst of the taping, Marco was like, all right, Vanessa, I got to get to work. And, just seeing him day in and day out be committed to Michelle and to his family in the midst of that, I applaud him. I applaud him.
I think what shifted for me was in my internal worlds, I feel more radicalized. I feel more charged to want to contribute to my community through film. So like I said before, I was more so in the music video world. And I just want to do more things that are basically real. So within me, that's what has shifted.
We do have a question from the chat from Maggie Stever. A question for the filmmakers: has there been or will there be wider distribution of your films? Will you try to show them to local government and national distribution?
Well, for me, I have a working relationship with Apple, and Apple was very instrumental in helping me execute this film. So, we'll see what happens with that. But would I like to show them or show this film wider if the opportunity presents itself? Of course, I would love to, especially after, talking to Michelle and things like that. I'm definitely open to it.
And though I'm not one of the filmmakers, I can say that, this model that, we chose to do this in is such that we wanted these films to be used as community tools, right? I think there is a world of filmmaking where you go in, you make a film on a community, and then it goes to all of these great screenings, but it never comes back home to the community that you did the work on, or the community that you interviewed and got all of these awards for. Never really got to engage with the work in that way. And so we wanted this to be widely used. It's on YouTube. So, if folks want to talk about COVID and Miami impact, you can literally Google it and these will come up. And so I know community organizations will be using these films, and, there will be there will be other screenings of the films, not just today, but around other community-based events, because the idea is that this is for the people and should be given back to the people, right? That this is storytelling in collaboration with folks, and that the people beyond the bars, whether it's, Roots Collective or Village Friege or, Miami Tenants Union, or, maybe a university class, that this will be easily accessible to folks, and that you don't have to have a special password to be able to see this and interact with it. That was definitely how we wanted to approach this, and how the filmmakers also were yeah, we're 10 toes down for this as well. And so I imagine it will cross-pollinate in many different types of ways, ways we know and ways we may never know, because it will be publicly available on this link for folks to watch and rewatch as needed. So I don't know if any of you all, Alicia, you look like you want to say something around that as well.
No. I'm just nodding in agreement. This has really been an incredible experience. I hope to spread it, further and wider. I hope that it raises money for the Village Friege. They need money. I really hope that this is a tool that we can use in that way. And I'd love to see it in other spaces. I think that it's a great starter for conversations, as I said, with policy, but also for students, also for families. For the first 2 days that I was working on the documentary, I volunteered in the Friege, and I didn't tell anybody why I was there. And it was just such a beautiful way to access and really understand and hear so much more about people's stories and really form bonds. My family volunteers at the Friege now. And so I think that it's just a great way to get integrated in the community. And I definitely see more opportunities for it to be distributed more widely in the future.
And I just want to uplift all of these organizations. I know that we've been dropping the links to their Instagram and their websites in the chat. So please scroll through the chat. If you don't see it right now, it's probably further up in the chat. But all of these organizations, we have dropped the links to who they are and how you can reach out and find them. So if you have any interest in collaborating, working with them, supporting them, sending them a love note, that, we have drop the ways for you guys to talk to them directly as well. But, talk to them in the chat too. Let them know how you all feel. I know the filmmakers have been getting a lot of love and the community experts have been getting a lot of love in the chat. And I mean, I see you, Michelle, like all the community experts are in the chat as well. So thank you all for joining us. And again, this is just the first of many screenings and conversations, and, future conversations will definitely include the community experts as well as panelists. And definitely if the community experts in the chat want to say anything, please, drop something in the chat and we will uplift that in this conversation as well. Crown Street Films, my friend Chad Tingle asked, for the filmmakers, did you approach the stories with a plan of how you wanted the story to unfold, or did you just let things happen naturally?
For myself, a lot of things just happen naturally. I just kind of let everything flow as it should and build the story from there.
I definitely had a plan, and that plan got thrown out of the window when I met Michelle. So I had an idea of how everything should go. And, like when you hear the story about housing injustice, you have a very stereotypical idea of what it should be and what probably happened. And then I meet Michelle and I'm like, okay, let me scrap my idea and I'm going to just let Michelle do her thing and I'm going to document it all. So Michelle definitely took the film and ran with it.
Michelle is the leader. And that, and that's important, I think, as storytellers to note that sometimes we go into stories with an idea, right? But if you let the people for whom this is their story lead, it can take you in some really powerful places because, again, they are, in fact, the experts of their lived experience, and we should honor that always. Another question from the chat from Mitzi is, how do we move to transform the emotional force of these stories into change at the state level for universities, syllabi development? ?
That is such a great question. And I think that all three of us can talk. We can definitely develop some educational materials tied in. I mean, this is a great assignment. I've been a high school teacher for a long time, to tie into a current event, to tie into newspaper, and policy is the next thing. I hope that the city of Miami is watching. I hope that our new HUD department's watching. I hope that our Department of Justice is watching, and we can definitely make sure that at least they have access to it. But there is a next step. And I think, Mitzi, that's a really great question. And I appreciate your asking it. We're not just heart-rending. We all have tools in our arsenal as community activists. Sometimes it's carrying a picket. Sometimes it's making a film. Sometimes it's walking in Washington and talking to each of your legislatures. But this is our way, and hopefully there'll be people who can take it that next step further.
Yeah, and to underscore what Alicia said, I mean, the collaboration was created in this way because we know that there is a deep bench of organizers in Miami-Dade for whom all of these stories matter, and that they will use this as a tool. Vanessa said something earlier that always sticks with me, and like why I tell stories is to bear witness, right? Like, what does it mean to bear witness, and what does it mean to have testimony? I mean, when you stand before the city commission to talk about something, right, there is testimony that happens there. In the courts, there's testimony that happens there. Before the legislature, there's testimony that happens there. And so certainly these are documented testimonials as well, that can be used in all of those spaces and beyond in ways that we may not be imagining. But folks on the ground who do this work and who organize folks and who build collectives, and everyone that was interviewed in these films are part of collectives that are doing movement work in Miami, now have an additional tool in their toolbox to use as a result of these films. So again, I just have to thank you all, the filmmakers, and again, Oolite Arts, for creating and supporting this platform for community storytelling. The next question is from Charles to Fxrbes. Fxrbes, his question is, or their question is, considering how Black people are disproportionately affected by the pandemic, were you able to hear from Black families with loved ones locked up and what that reality looks like for them?
Yes, there are a few women in the collective Beyond the Bars who are Black women. One woman, Catherine, I believe her name is Catherine. She's in the film, and she's basically she was giving some details about how the correctional officers were the ones who were bringing in COVID into the facility. So I would say that from all of their stories are pretty much the same. They're all pretty much equal to how their family members are being affected. So I would say there isn't much of a difference between, the races of the situation. It was kind of messed up for everybody.
I want to kind of jump off of something you said earlier, Fxrbes, which is like how this kind of shifted for you, is that you felt like this radicalized you in a way that makes you want to really like focus in more on community storytelling and like the real lives of what happened here. And I think, when we think of storytelling in Miami and the images that are portrayed of this place, it's not always the folks that you all uplifted in your films, right? And certainly not centering justice and equity. And so I just want to ask, the three of you, how this has informed your practice as a storyteller as a result of doing these films and like what that means.
Well, as a documentary photographer as well, I've always been very intentional about documenting communities of color. And my pictures, my work are not what you see on South Beach. I'm in Liberty City, I'm in Little Haiti, I'm in Goals. Like, I'm in the places where my people are. And a lot of times the photographs that I take are very raw, very intimate, and very honest. And so this film has just really reinforced my position in making sure that I am properly representing communities of color. I am properly representing the reality of the city that I'm from, that I love, that raised me. And so, like you said earlier, Nadege, 10 toes down, definitely. Definitely. It is definitely reinforced that for me.
Fxrbes or Alicia?
For my technical practice has changed a lot. My training is as like a broadcast news journalist. So I'm used to just taking these really kind of quick shots, but filmmaking has been a very different experience, and it's allowed me an intimacy and a connection with the people that we worked with it's really dynamic and it's really beautiful, and it adds a whole another layer to what it is that we do. I think that it's raised a lot of questions for me, like, why aren't food stamps available to everybody else? What can we do to make connections as simple as technology and linking people together? I think that my politics remain the same, but this has really been an experience in craft.
And what kind of changed for me technically is this is my first documentary. I've never really done a documentary before. So this has helped open up a door for me to feel comfortable being able to tell stories and to help tell stories of real life people instead of stories of artists, basically. So that's what changed.
Marlon wants to know, for the filmmakers, have you thought about a follow-up to your story and possibly creating a larger, longer film with potentially an even greater impact moving forward? Do you want to take this and run with it, the topics and folks that you guys have been working with?
That is a really great question. Marlon is a fantastic, and very strong support within Miami's film community. I could say very easily, I've thought endlessly about extending this perhaps to a feature. There's so many hours of footage, and when I know mine was like 13 minutes the longest, and every minute was so hard, and I was like fighting for a few more. So I definitely can see that opportunity. Sharina and Danny are just very charismatic and inspirational and dynamic people, and I can see that their stories really would motivate people to work within their own space, you know, like create the way that they're going to change their own communities. I think that that's really telling and applicable to communities around the world.
Oh, go ahead, Fxrbes. Go ahead.
For Beyond the Bars, I believe that as their journey continues and they make new steps in their journeys, I would definitely be down to tell the next steps.
For me, yes. I think that I would like to hear or see even more families or people that has been affected by this, and have them share their stories and weave it into what I've already done with Michelle.
Well, I feel like we have lots of organizations and folks who would love to work with you all. Y'all know my number. I can help make all of this happen. So, and so can so many of the amazing organizations you've already worked with. So just want to say that we are here for you all as filmmakers and storytellers, as resources, because I think, you know, narrative work is incredibly powerful. And telling our stories matter, and telling our stories in our way matters. So on that note, I just want to say thank you so much, Alicia, Vanessa, Fxrbes. Thank you all so much for the beautiful work you've done. Thank you to all the community experts and collaborators, Sharina, Danny, Michelle, Lisbeth. I so appreciate every single one of you and the work that you do every single day. And I look forward to building with you all. And thank you to Oolite. I mean, thank you so much to Oolite and my employer, Community Justice Project, for just, you know, jamming with us and letting us create and play and providing us the resources to be able to uplift these stories in a way that centers human narratives, that centers the real Miami and the real folks in Miami. And thank you to every single one of you who are watching right now and who will watch in the future. Please share this widely on your social media, in your institutions, in your classes. You know, let folks see this, let folks see the real Miami and what happens here, and what happens when you give dope storytellers and community collaborators an opportunity to tell these types of stories. I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Good night. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Danielle and Dennis and Marlon and Nadege. I've respected your work for so long. It's really been an incredible experience to be here working with all of you.
Same.
Same.